60.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Join me, Speedy, Adler, and Greg for the Rick Burgess Show on WGNS.
The Rick Burgess Show, weekdays 11 to 2 on News Radio WGNS. We're the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Tuesday morning edition of the Roundtable with Rick and Wayne. Welcome back, Wayne.
Welcome back. Happy New Year, brother. We're back in the saddle.
Recharged, ready to go.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out, "Good morning, Rutherford County."
Well, you can.
but I
Let
think
Brian
that's
know before you go yelling.
yeah, that's probably copyright infringement on Robin Williams. So I'll leave that alone.
Probably right.
But Happy New Year! Great to see you again. I think Brian missed us a little bit. So.
A little bit.
Oh gosh. Well, it's cold, and we got snow coming possibly Friday. Dr. Sullivan was on before us, and I'm sure he's making plans to get the school system ready to go.
Up and running.
If James Evans has to pull his snowbird, I assume that James is still the voice of school snow closings. So
Oh yeah.
So
welcome those phone calls.
Yeah, he's most popular guy in the county some days. So, but great to see you. Hey, we got we have a great friend, someone just immeasurable respect for. Commissioner Phil Wilson, representing Smyrna and a portion of Laverne, and just taking care of the northern end of the county and the county on the whole. Welcome this morning, Commissioner.
Good morning,
Welcome
Rick.
to 2025,
Wayne.
first victim, let's say, of 2025.
Well, I was told this
show.
was a roast, so I haven't prepared anything.
Yeah.
I will say, though, we're all from Smyrna in the north end, so we're big Blue Angels fans, so I'm going to say I'm glad to be here.
Yeah,
Well, we're grateful for you to take time out of your busy schedule to be with us, so thank you.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we talk about off the microphone constantly, obviously former commissioners, both of you, and Commissioner Blair here, many years on the school board and as chairman, so we're going to start today really just with an update. Health and education in Rutherford County is certainly one of the largest subjects we have for two reasons. One, from a commission standpoint, the funding, just the expense of education itself and the growth. And, the other portion of education is, kind of a debate on where the state of Tennessee is going. And that will affect how we operate education in the future. Obviously, the governor's talking about a new voucher bill. So there's things we can talk about towards the end of that. But I wanted to start with giving the listeners basically kind of a 2-year update on what we have funded thus far, what's currently in construction, and the big one is what's coming, what we're going to be asked for next. So I'll start there, and certainly let's start with the very first thing that we approved, which was the high school additions. And Commissioner Blair, I know when you were finishing your last term, the high school additions, all 5 at one point, were actually up for discussion. And I know from the expense, I believe it was asked for the Board of Education to rank those and what was the most important. Yeah. So
yes, sir.
Let's go with the first 3. And one thing would be great, and I've learned this as a newer commissioner myself, there's such a learning curve in the community on how local government operates. So it's real important to me for a lot of listeners to just make sure they understand why things operate the way they do. And let's start with this. Education is a mandated service to be provided by counties. in Tennessee. Any city or municipality, they could decide that they want to vote to take a special school district, but just so everyone knows what is mandated by the state, the way we run is the counties, there are 95, they produce services for folks. That's everything from education to public safety. You know, a lot of your unincorporated rural areas have a sheriff's department. You know, you only have city police if you have a municipality where there's, money being collected from a city. So this is a real county-run state where all your mandated services that you need are provided by the county. That's where your county taxes go. There's a supplemental city tax should you live in the incorporated areas where they can decide what they want to provide. So just kind of want to start with that basic fundamental, whose responsibility is it? Big question we get. Who's responsible for the schools? Well, obviously I live in Smyrna, but the city of Smyrna is actually not responsible for the funding of schools. So let's talk a little bit about where funding, how they do help. So 50% of the local portion of sales tax in a municipality, 50% of the local portion goes directly to fund education in the county. So basically at our sales tax, you're at the 9.75, 7% to the state. We're splitting the 2.75 between the municipality it was collected in, and the other 50% goes directly to education. So that's the funding that is provided from your municipality to the county. Any other monies for that, just so you know, that is provided through a property tax on the county, and that goes towards education. So there's kind of a basic, and Rick, do you have anything to add on that? There's just kind of the basics of how basic education is funded in the state of Tennessee.
Well, that comes back to when we put on Facebook posts or social media or anything like that about shopping local. It's one, supporting that business that's there, but two, that's keeping that money in this county. So when you drive down 840 and go over to Franklin and you shop over there for a day or something like that, and let's say you drop a couple $100, then you're funding their educational program in Williamson County. You're not helping Smyrna. Same as you go to Nashville or Lebanon or wherever you may go. And I get it. You can't 100% of the time shop in this county, but that is so crucial to spend your dollars here and spend them wisely to where it's funding your kids' education, because the sales tax that we, I know they're doing doing away with the food sales tax in the state, but the shared tax that comes from that, it's got to be replaced somehow.
Sure. That's such a great point you're making. When there are discussions of tax-free holidays, it's an interesting, once again, we were talking about while we were waiting for the show to start this morning, there's so many issues that what happens with watching cable news and getting on Facebook and social media. We have these little one-liner talking points that everyone's angry about and that they share and they go viral. The truth is, I haven't found an issue yet that's actually not fairly complex. I don't find a simple issue. I find that any funding idea has a cause and effect. There, you have to see what are the ancillary damages done. If we're not funding one thing, who is getting the funding? How are they making up the supplemental difference? And you just brought up such a great point. If there's taxes not being collected, we fundamentally, 50% of your local portion of sales tax directly offsets, and I have to say the word offsets, the amount that we need to collect through an ancillary tax, property or wheel tax, to fund education.
Sure.
So this is a really big point. If we get across one thing today, if we could ask the folks, the next time you want to talk about the increasing cost of inflation, help us share the message. Make a post today on your Instagram and make a TikTok video, make a Facebook post and say, Rutherford Countyans, the number one way we can avoid increases in taxes to help fund education in our own county is to do our very best to spend the money inside the county where it stays, and it makes a difference on the bottom line. Because Rick, you're right. As soon as you go into Williamson County, Davidson County, or Wilson to go to a specific store, the truth is you are funding that county's education, not your own. So great point. I'm glad we kind of started there.
Sure.
Because people always say, well, how can I help? I can't make a difference. If you add up all the money you spend and the sales tax you pay, if you start adding that up, that's a significant amount of money staying inside the county that's not being collected through a tax.
Wonder how much sales tax comes from the grocery aspect with with Kroger and Publix, and if you did away with the sales tax on food, just buying for grandchildren, I can drop an easy 100 just every few days, and shopping for a week it's at least a couple of hundred, and that's a big part of the budget.
So I will say this, for that subject to come up, I really believe that what happened is, if the state were to initiate that, remember there's two taxes being collected, the 7 plus the local portion. Right. It may be that the state says we're going to forego our portion, our 7%, because we have other funds that we can support this with. Remember, that portion of education that these guys are providing, the state, wherever that fund comes from, they would just not be collecting this tax to go into that. They would be funding that from somewhere else, but we would still receive that state portion of funding for each student. Okay. So the local portion could stay. So you're exactly right. You may say, hey, there's not going to be a state tax on food. Doesn't mean there's not still the 2.75% local tax. Therefore, right, you're continuing your money in your municipalities and going towards education. The state is just finding a way to make up those funds. And so that might be... Have you shared
that with anybody yet? Because that makes such good sense.
Here we are.
Well, that's what happens on the Rick and Wayne show on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m.
You got to become inventive on tax sources. So I don't know if you've gone downtown Nashville and bought an adult beverage now, but if you look at the bottom of the ticket, there's about 5 different added taxes there. Entertainment, they added all these other taxes on to grab money to make, to support what's going on in the downtown district area. And that's what municipalities and counties are going to end up doing, is being inventive as far as their tax sources, which would have to be passed by the state legislators if we can get it through. But I hate that we have to fight each other. It's like you said, this voucher program that the governor's got on his list, I don't know that he's got the guidance around him to say, hey, this is how we see how you're going to spend this money and give it out to more kids and make things aware. But look at the tax implications it's going to do for every one of these 95 counties that are trying to fund their systems. And before air we come on, you were talking about school buses, and that's a cost, and I'll let you bring that up. But the cost involved in just transporting our kids alone it's unbelievable.
I do think when people actually, and that's why I want to bring some of that to light today, when someone actually hears the amount of dollars we're talking about, it really changes the way you think about it. Because you think about the contribution we're making through your property tax. When you put that against what the real cost is currently, and it's a rising cost, but where it is currently, anyone that's reasonable can understand the problem we're in, and how, honestly, a solution for the future, it's very simple. It's no different than a family. The budget's the same. We're going to either have to find more revenue, or we're going to have to quit spending and make very difficult cuts. There actually is no other answer. It's either get more, spend more, or it's stop spending what we don't have. And we'll get into that in a minute when we start kind of talking about where we are with property taxes, because I think the staggering amount, and I had this conversation in an interview recently talking about the cost of education and, the typical Rutherford County, and if we just say your county property tax is around $2,000, well, your contribution really is closer to local level to about $3,500 per year per child. Because I think we were just under $10,500 was the cost that Dr. Sullivan mentioned was where we're at per child per year. The state's providing right around, I think, $6,600 is the base plus some weights. Let's just say it's $7,000. You're still paying about $3,500 per child per year. We're only collecting in a single family residence about $2,000. So right. Let's just, and I'm just giving facts. This is no attack on anyone. I'm just trying to throw out where everything is so we can go from here. One child already means that you're not paying enough into the system for what the system is actually paying for your child. So that's being subsidized through someone else that doesn't have someone in the school system. So we get into really what I think is the elephant in the room, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. If I was, it's too late now as I'm about to do it. But we have a real crisis of home affordability. And it's forcing families to live together. It's forcing young couples to even live with their parents. You know, some even are finishing college and even getting married and starting a family and needing to actually live with family for a while. So we also have a culture migration where there are people that enjoy living in a multifamily situation. So what we have is we have collected taxes in the past that are built on a single family living in a residence, and we have probably a percentage of 1.5 to 2.1 children per household. It's kind of where you base on how this is balancing out. We now have a growing trend that there are multiple children, from multiple families in a home, and those folks are just trying to survive, living together. But you don't have a system to support what the cost of the county services are. For instance, a family with 3 children in the school system, $3,500. We're over $10,000 just on the local portion per child per year. That's just education, and their taxes may have been less than $2,500. So right there, do you see that's a big subsidy coming from people that don't have children? Well, it's just simple math. When you are the most affordable, least expensive, lowest tax county in the major counties in the mid-state, you are a victim of your own success.
True.
An incredible public education system. I would say by far the best of now we're the 4th largest, the best of those by far. We're very attractive. We're a place of refuge. You come across Davidson County and you save money with better services, better quality of life just by crossing a county line. The truth is, with that growth coming, we simply aren't able to collect enough revenue to take on additional services, and specifically education is the highest cost. A family with 2 children that moves in, if they're paying an average of $2,000, those 2 children, I just told you, that's $7,000 of a copay from the local level per year. So I'm going to give you one more staggering number. We'll talk about the buses in a bit. Let's just talk about what the local investment is. We always hear about fully funding education and how much we put into students. I'm just going to round down to 10,000. 12 years of school at $10,000 a year. We are providing every Rutherford County student, the community pays $120,000 for that student's education. Doesn't that make you think about it a little bit differently?
Of course.
I don't think a student even understands. We talk about the high cost of college. We're paying $120,000 as a local, state and local contribution per student to give them an education. It's really important. It's very foundational. It's a huge investment that the community is making. But when you think about $120,000 over 12 years per child, I think it should change the expectation, the quality, and the investment we all make in making sure we instill the importance in our children of how important their education is. Their education is not free. It is not at no charge, just like there's no free lunch. And there isn't. The free and reduced lunch program, there is no free lunch. There is a no cost to people. We have no additional cost to additional children in a school system. And right now, the elephant in the room is, if you continue to have multiple families go into a single family residence as a refuge, as a way to survive, because they simply can't afford a home of their own, you don't have a revenue collection system that can continue taking on the additional students without an additional single dollar of revenue. And that is a growing problem. And how we deal with that, I'm first trying to figure out where some of our huge problems are that we don't have a solution for. I'm bringing that up. I don't have a solution for this, but it needs to be discussed amongst people because we want to be fair. But also, this is a subsidy program. Those without children pay a property tax. Those with children pay the same. The truth is, you are paying into where someone is actually needing more services than they're paying into. We're at the point that's starting to flip to an unsustainable place. So I'm just going to get that out there because we need to deal with it and quit being afraid to address it. But we need to have that conversation.
Well, and the other expense that goes along with that is, like you said earlier, public safety. Rick, I think I understood that they're having conversations about a new jail, and if we think a high school is very expensive, wait till you put a price tag on a new jail with all the security enhancements that facility has to have. So, I mean, between ambulance and the courts and the roads, the dollars just don't add up.
They don't. And I do want to come to the folks with, there are solutions. The solutions are difficult because, as Rick said before, we're going to have to start thinking outside the box in revenue, in terms of revenue. The state is doing what they can to provide us revenue. We're in a fast-growing situation in Rutherford County, but you do have to understand that there are 95 counties. There are 95 counties being represented at the state level. Most counties are not having the growth that we are. So to get a vote through in any form to appropriate funds for us, it requires a majority vote. It does, in both the House and the Senate, to be able to get that to pass. We do have an issue. We saw it with the impact fees. We have an issue with the fact that rural representation that are not experiencing the problems we're having do not want additional taxes. They do not want any additional form of ways that actually make it even harder for their counties to not be able to afford services. So we've got a real battle. We've got 7 delegates, and they're going up against 132 others of trying to get across what we need. There is truth to the fact that it's hard to get that majority vote when there no's right from the beginning. The adequate facilities tax increase, I felt, was truly actually a gift, only for this reason. We really couldn't force that to happen. If you didn't get that section of the home builders and the chambers of commerce and all the entities affected by changing and increasing the adequate facilities tax, if you didn't get them on board, it would never have been able to pass. And it's because the rural representation does not want any type of additional taxes or opportunities for additional taxes. So to win that takes a lot of compromise. And that's just wanted to point that out. That increase will help us. That will substantially be an increase to our bottom line to help. But we're actually fortunate we got that because the battle in Tennessee is growing counties versus those that aren't, and then trying to get a majority vote to increase all what I would call alternate revenues, new forms of revenue, or even just help from fast growing.
I want to talk about that facilities tax. We're coming up against a break, so I don't know if we keep going here or why don't we just take our break and we'll come back and we'll continue with that because there's a couple of points I think we ought to make on that as well. But you listen to Tuesday Morning Roundtable with Rick and Wayne. We're going to take our first break and be right back with you in just a minute.
Chip Walters here with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates. I was named a top 10 agent in the #1 Exit Realty office in America in 2021. The top question I get around town, how's the market? Good question. And the answer's changed a few times this year alone. I'd like to know what you've heard and share some solid data we have. Give me a call and let's have a cup of coffee and take a look at what's happening in your neighborhood. All my contact info is right on my website, choosechip.net. I'm Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates.
First Shot, growing in Christ with life and athletic skills.
So we teach God's Word at everything we do to implant it in them so that they understand that the only way to get through the world is with God on their side.
First Shot founder and executive director Andy Herzer.
Our focus is on our inner city here at Patterson Park.
From academics to athletics, First Shot's focus is toward building a stronger, more courageous spirit to face opportunities and obstacles that our youth confront every day. To find out more about First Shot, go to firstshottn.org.
The city of Murfreesboro is growing, and we need your help to prove it. This is Mayor Shane McFarland, and participating in a special census helps ensure we get the funding we deserve for essential services like road paving, sidewalks, and parks. It's easy. Just visit murfreesborocensus.com, fill out the secure form, or complete the special census letter coming to your mailbox. Remember, every person counts.
Count me in.
Okay, count me in.
And count me in too.
Let's make sure Murfreesboro gets its true share. Complete the special census today.
If you want to get some barbecue, I'll tell you how to do it. Head for the Slick Pig and you're into it. Just walk through the door at 1920 East Main and your nose will send a message right to your brain. Say, smells good. And barbecue. Slick Pig. We got ribs and beans. Got spicy wings. Slick Pig.
A Murfreesboro tradition. 1920 East Main.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by AmeriCare Pest Control and the law offices of John Day.
This is a paid legal ad.
You've probably heard it a million times. If you're injured, call a lawyer. And you probably haven't because you don't know how much it will cost, how long it will take, or even if you have a case. At the law offices of John Day, we provide a free initial consultation because we understand that folks don't want to pay a lawyer only to find out they don't have a case. If you think we can help, we do so on a contingency basis, which means we only get paid if you do. Seriously injured? Call me, John Day.
WGNS encourages you to shop local. Let's patronize those local family businesses. Put this on your calendar. Saturday, January the 18th, is the Martin Luther King Jr. Breakfast at MTSU. Adult tickets are $40 and youth are $20. It's sponsored by the Murfreesboro NAACP, and it will be in MTSU's James Union Building. Again, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Breakfast Celebration is Saturday, January the 18th, 9 until noon, at MTSU's James Union Building. All Shook Up featuring the music of Elvis Presley at the Center for the Arts in Uptown Murfreesboro, now through January the 26th. Don't miss All Shook Up. The Center for the Arts is at 110 West College Street in Uptown Murfreesboro. Your opportunity to buy one and get one free Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department monthly or yearly pass to either SportsComm or the Patterson Community Center ends at 5 o'clock Sunday, January the 19th. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
Partial sunshine develops here this afternoon. We'll see high in the mid-30s. Tonight, mostly cloudy, a low near 21. Wednesday, skies become sunny, high of 32 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS. Currently, it's 27.
Broadcasting from the Middle Tennessee Electric Studios. Take control of your account management and energy consumption with the MyMTE app. Download from the App Store and manage your account, improve your energy habits, and more. MTE, serving to make life better since 1936.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
And good morning and Happy New Year, and welcome back to the second segment of Tuesday Mornings with Rick and Wayne. And it's our pleasure this morning and an honor actually to have Commissioner Phil Wilson from the northern end of Rutherford County as our guest. And we're covering quite a few topics this morning. I would like to just bring up the voucher program being proposed by the governor just for maybe a couple of minutes, and what I haven't understood, the voucher program in what he's proposed in the past would only affect Shelby, Davidson, and Knox, but I understand now that he is going to try to change it, that it becomes a statewide issue. And if that occurs, it kind of reminds me of when the lottery program began. You know, we were saying, oh, right, all this money coming. But if you look at when the lottery was enacted and the increases that occurred from higher education, of course, the lottery money was still positive, but the cost of education on the collegiate level went up substantially as well.
So a couple of things, and obviously this is Governor Lee's new bill introduced, and to think it's not going to be amended in several ways, I think is not realistic. I think there will be several amendments, but going in a couple of points, this is just what I heard last night. was, I believe it's looking at starting with a cap of 20,000 applicants. And from what I understand, the possibility of taking two groups of 10,000 applicants, and there being obviously some restrictions on income. And I think that part is to satisfy, to be sure that it goes to people that they believe really could use it, versus what the public believes is the biggest issue is someone that's already affording private education to be able to get money just basically back in their pocket. Sure. So I can say this at this point, that is going to be addressed, because that was one of the big issues in the last session, was trying to get through that conversation. So 20,000, I believe, is the initial, what he's offering as the cap. So it would start with that, and that's fewer students, right? When it was just, could it be anyone? Everyone's thinking, well, my goodness, what if in one county 10,000? Well, that's unlikely to happen, since that's statewide with those numbers. Interestingly enough, the school voucher bill is where. So we talk about revenue, and we're going to get to Rick and his comments about the ag facilities tax, and we can talk about the increase to it. But the voucher bill is where the sports wagering money, that bill is where that money is being put in to come to schools. It's inside that bill right now. And from what I understand, Rutherford County would be in the range right now as it sits of somewhere between $5 to $15 million that would come in. And one thing I heard was the governor's push is to help. We talked about this off air, I believe, and you can bring that up again. There's a real maintenance issue going on in our 95 counties with just failing buildings, counties that don't have the money to even upkeep their facilities. So I know the governor was very concerned about that. So inside the school voucher bill is sports wagering money that was going to be split up between us to be able to use towards maintenance. That it would certainly be a help for all 95 counties. Now, in particular, the extra question was asked, is there any issue with that being used towards capital projects? We have both issues in Rutherford County, but it's nice to know we would have the flexibility to move that correctly into whichever way we need to. Right now, we're putting 10 cents into a fund. 10 cents from the property tax collection is going to 10 pennies. And just so you know, the property tax penny equates to about $1.5 million. So we have about 10 pennies that are going into what we call 177, which is our maintenance fund, capital projects fund. So it's nice to know that if we wanted to move some pennies from that to, say, debt services for a capital project to build, that we might have some ancillary money coming from the state that we could either put back there, or we could leave it like it is and possibly use some of those funds towards the capital project. It would go into debt service. So there is that caveat in this bill to help all 95. That's the caveat to help public education, is basically what that is. Because the one concern we all have is we're taking money out of public education to go towards something else, something private. That's a valid concern. That's a standard question I believe everyone would ask. So I think that's one of the efforts you're seeing on how do we return in money directly into public education. Well, that's a pretty big one. So I think, just to give you a couple of things that I heard, that's where we're kind of starting. And they'll start those full discussions on negotiating back and forth. But I do believe there is a desire to try to make sure something in there reasonable for public education is being done, a true expense. At the same point, starting out with a capped number of how many people could enter this program to begin with. And boy, I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about this, because it's probably the hottest topic we're going to have in Tennessee.
Sure.
Yeah. I think we're gotten way past the ag facility tax, but I want to, I guess, bring up that what you're talking about here is, if you think of one penny's $1.5 million, you're spending $1.23 for the $185.5 million it takes a year for our educational program, and that's just one part of the pie. The county is a full pie, so you got the jail, and you got sheriff's office, you got your health department, your fire department, you got all these other departments that fall under that you have to use your tax dollars for, and that's why that conversation on the state level and the federal level that we haven't even talked about is, like, on the federal level, it's been a big issue about illegal immigration. Well, the federal, while they've gave money to these big cities in the Northeast and California and places like that to help. We've got nothing here from that. And I think we're over 10,000 of our students are English as a second language students. So we've had to hire those teachers in for the education of those because it's federally mandated. We got to educate them. And we're not getting federal funding for that. We're using your local tax dollars. And when you got multiple families into a household that only pays that set $2,000, then we got to make up the difference somehow.
That's right.
So, and again, that's the part of the agri-facilities tax was you have to allow us to continue to grow at 2% a year to be able to get the money, but you will get that, what's it equate to, 50 or 57 million maybe a year we could get from it?
Well, no, I wish it were. That was the increase that we received once the TISA funding model had kicked in.
You're
so
right.
that's where there's so many numbers floating around.
I know.
That's where that came from. No, what we'll really get from this agri-facilities tax increase is, just so everyone knows, it has been $1 a square foot for the past several years, and actually it was only, I believe, $1,500 was what it was for many, many years. It was. And I think it was just a few years ago that they were able to at least get that choice amended to doing the $1 a square foot. What this increase did was it allowed it to go to up to, once again, county government gets to decide it's up to. You don't have to do it. So if there's counties that did not want to increase this, they don't have to. But they have the right to, right? The state tells you what you can and can't do. That's important for listeners to understand, that county government is an extension of the state government. The state tells us what we can and cannot do. So that has to pass through the General Assembly for us to do this. We, of course, raised it to the $1.50. So we are now receiving on new home construction $1.50 a square foot. And here's the new piece. The new piece is there was no commercial facilities tax. And let me make sure I explain this. I didn't say this at the beginning. The adequate facilities tax goes specifically to education. That's right. Specifically. So let me point that out. That increase is because that's the biggest one, biggest cost created by growth and by new homes and residents. So it goes specifically for that. Commercial is also $1.50 a square foot. That's up to 150,000 square feet. That's a new piece we didn't have before. We had simply the $1 square foot on just regular housing. Now we have the $1.50 square foot up to 150,000 square feet on commercial. So we think at the end of some math this year, that would equate to a $6 to $7 million increase. So let's kind of put that into pennies, right? When we're talking about funding a new school, or funding any of these projects, the jail, it's all going to be the same. Right now, based on current interest rates, you're basically paying about $75,000 annually per million. So let's put that in perspective. $50 million bond, you're going to pay about just in between $3.5 to $4 million bucks, somewhere in there. So we're talking about a high school that is going to be debated heavily as far as timing and funding, how we're going to pay for it. If we take out a $200 million bond for that high school, we have way other more important things first. I got to get to that cost millions of dollars. So let's just do 4 times the 4. We're looking at between $12 and $16 million needed annually for 20 years to make the payment for that school. So I'm just putting that in perspective. You may remember we had a property tax increase, which we may not get to today, folks, but we're going to talk about the history of that property tax increase, how we got here, so that everybody clearly understands how we got here, where it's going, and where your money's going. But the increase of 26 pennies, that brought us up to about 40 million. Well, we're sitting here having a conversation that just to add this high school is going to add $12 to $16 million a year. That's half of just one project.
That's just the building.
Yes, sir. We haven't operated it. That's just it getting that
not
built.
Operation. That's not.
So I'm trying to put in perspective when people talk about this property tax increase, and I want them to understand it's actually relatively just a small portion of the real need. So I want to talk a little bit about that, what we've spent thus far, and what we're going to be asked to spend. And we're going to start with education today, but boy, we can get into a lot of other subjects later because we haven't discussed public safety funding, including a jail, which is a big project, right? And then we also have to talk about issues with what the potential cost for solid waste would be. I mean, you're talking about, that's a whole nother day subject because you're talking about something that up to this point people see as having really no cost,
You're inviting yourself back.
I may bring a couple other people for this one. This one's a tough one.
Yeah, I understand.
So education. Let's talk about what we funded. Smyrna High School, Oakland High School, Riverdale High School. All three have had the annexes and the additions approved. I just want to get you the cost on that. It was $38 million for the Smyrna High School edition, $62 million for Oakland's edition, $56 million for Riverdale. That's big bucks, everybody.
Yes.
And let me make sure I'm real clear on that. When I give you these costs, we didn't write a check. We don't have that money sitting around. These are all bond issues. So we're making payments on all of these.
Sure.
The next thing we approved was the Poplar Hill Elementary School.
That's right.
That's up on the Beatty property. That ended up being a split. It was a $60 million project. The Board of Education actually gave $30 million towards that project, and we kicked in the additional 30, showing their willingness to interject some of their fund balance towards the need for schools, which I think is fairly significant.
Sure.
Schedules for those. Smyrna has actually been in use of that building. We'll have a ribbon cutting probably somewhere in the next 6 weeks or so. Obviously, we'll all be there for that.
We'd like to come for that.
I will make sure you know.
Thank you.
We like to have class in the joint. Look, Oakland and Riverdale's additions looking to open, this fall. On both of those, the Poplar Hill Elementary also. It is it's a big operation, warp speed. Dr. Sullivan says it's going to open by this fall.
That's right.
And his words are, it's going to have to. That is part of our rezoning plan thus far, has been to get that open. So that's coming this fall. And we just funded the Laverne High School edition, and that was $44 million. And we need to take a break here. All right. Tell you what, we'll talk about, that's things that the county has funded thus far. It has been approved. We're going to talk about the asks that are about to come that are not approved yet. And when we get back, right?
It's a long list. Listen to Commissioner Phil Wilson. He's a commissioner of District 10. That's what I had that on the tip of my tongue. Or I was 12, so I knew he was close to my seat. But you're listening to the Rick and Wayne Show on the Tuesday Morning Roundtable. We're going to take our second break. Be right back with you in just a minute.
Are you tired of feeling like just another number with your insurance provider? At Rayburn Insurance Agency in Smyrna, Agent Rick Hall prides himself on offering personalized service that puts you first. Every client's needs are unique. From personal home and auto coverage to tailored business insurance, Rick Hall's got you covered. Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance Agency in Smyrna, where you're more than just a policy number. You're a neighbor.
At Bud's Tire Pros, we sell all major brands of tires, and we invite you to stop by today for that next set of tires. Or maybe you need us to check out your vehicle before you head out of town. We offer everything from brakes to batteries, alignments, and more. No appointments necessary, just stop on by.
I'm Allison Mitchell with Bud's Tire Pros. We're located on East Main Street, exactly 3 miles from the town square, 1 mile past Rutherford Boulevard. Visit us online at budstireprostn.com.
At Middle Point Landfill, we strive to serve our neighbors.
This county is willing to put themselves out there and take some new initiatives.
Mike Clausen, General Manager of the Middle Point Landfill.
We want to transform Middle Point into a sustainability campus where we are building recycling facilities. We're building cutting-edge diversion facilities.
Middle Point values its relationship with you, which is why we never tire of serving our neighbors throughout Rutherford County.
Learn more at middlepointlandfill.com.
Fill the halls with shouts of winning, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be giving, fa la 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 la. Instant games to friends and family, fa la 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 la. Join the joyous cash prize carol, fa la 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 la.
With top prizes up to $500,000, holiday instant games from the Tennessee Lottery make grand gifts. Find them at your nearest Tennessee Lottery retailer today. Please play and gift responsibly.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
And welcome back to the third and final segment of Tuesday Mornings with Rick and Wayne. And our guest this morning has been Commissioner Phil Wilson of District 10, the northern end of Rutherford County. And Commissioner, you've shared a lot of information. I think you're going to tell us some wish lists that haven't been funded.
That's right. So this is where we're at thus far, what we mentioned last segment, which is well over $250 million worth of money spent just towards, these have been basically school additions with the exception of the elementary school. So here's your two big issues that are unavoidable. You know Blackman, by the way, and I know you know this, it is the largest middle school in the state of Tennessee, 1,800 students. That is not something that we're proud of.
No, sir.
That's a product of what's happened with nowhere else to go. So we're going to be asked, and I would like to say Dr. Sullivan has done a great job of being forthcoming to make sure we are months and months in advance talking about the asks coming up so that there's time to talk about it. The middle school on the Beatty property, it's a special design to fit on the property next to the elementary school. That's going to be asked, and that bid will probably be in the $90 million range. So based on what I just told you, $90 million of a cost equates to right about a $7 to $8 million annual payment. So that's a way for us to think about things. If we're going to get a bond on it, think about the annual payment over 20 years, and that's the pennies we're going to have to find or add or have additional revenue coming in. Maybe it's the growth of the current penny, but you're going to have those dollars to pay that annual payment. So we got the middle school at $90 million. The high school in the north end, two things. One, we still have to buy the land.
That's right.
I expect that ask to come immediately. If not our very next meeting, I'm sure that's going to come up. After purchasing the land, that high school model, the same school, Stewart's Creek and Rockville, same model we've been using, $180 to $200 million is the estimate for that school. So we're talking between land, middle school, and high school within the next, say, year, because the high school ask will come within the next budget year. That is an additional $300 million. We have funded over $250. This is another $300. So please just take a second and really put that in perspective. $300 million, what is the annual payments? Let's just take the low end that it was $3 million times that, right? $18 million. That we're going to have to find revenue to pay to, if we fund these. When I say if, we must pay for these. So the if means we have to have revenue coming in to be able to afford this. We can't just continue to appropriate money we don't have, because at some point the bill is due. That's a big topic coming up. We know it's coming, and we need to talk about it. That's one of the things of working with the state, of trying to find any sources of revenue. We mentioned that the voucher bill does have the sports wager money in there, so it's a possibility that that money could be used towards what we just talked about, right? If it was on the higher end of it, the $15 million end, well, for $300 million, you need 18. This is the kind of math we're having to do just to kind of get there, right? So we're going to hope that something gets done with that sports wager money to help maintenance and school capital projects, regardless of what bill it's in.
That's right.
We need all the help we can get, because everybody, I want to make sure I'm very clear. If we don't get help from the state, then it's us. We're on our own.
That's right.
Bottom line, that's it. Ask for help from the state. They do what they can. Next, it's on us. If we don't want to fund things, you have to consider that we're putting kids in portables because they got to go somewhere. Sure. We're going to have those conversations.
And those aren't inexpensive.
As a matter of fact, I'll give you an update. This is a current deal. We have 52,300 students in 51 schools. We have, with portables in use, currently 179 total classrooms are portables. 72 are singles.
They're trailers.
53 are doubles. And we asked Trey Lee recently, what's the installed cost if this is a route we have to go? For a double classroom, because we're buying the doubles if we buy them, $200,000 is the installed cost.
Wow.
It's a big number. That's, you buy five doubles, 10 classrooms you add, $1 million.
Which begins, the structural integrity starts diminishing the day that they're installed.
That's the fundamental discussion on the materials for building schools. There's two schools of thought. You're building a school that's built of metal, and it has a lifespan of 15 to 20 years, and you kick the can to worry about it later, but you save the money now. Or you think we're having to provide schools that could last 50 to 100 years because we can't keep replacing schools every 15, 20 years. So there's your debate on your quality of building materials. You're going to pay one way or another. If we would have built more schools sooner, if we could have known it was coming, this high school blueprint was only $70 million just 7 to 10 years ago. Now it's 200.
Just had no way of getting ahead of it.
You couldn't possibly know a couple of things. One, the impact of COVID, and also the inflation that resulted from that. Those things have created absolute havoc, as if growth wasn't enough on the pace we were at.
Right.
You had these two things you couldn't see that have doubled down. And honestly, that's one thing I can say is your commissioners are really trying hard to work through this. Once again, very complex issue because everything costs money and everyone wants money. All of our employees, they have the same expenses. Their expenses have been increased. Their food costs are up. Teachers' costs are up. Everyone needs more pay. Y'all, it's a public service. Teachers, county employees, police officers, public safety, at the end of the day, it's a shared cost. It's a public service. We pay that. So if we want them to have more, we have to find the money to pay more. And again, I'm going to simplify it. Either the state has a program to help give us some extra to help, or we have to pay for it on our own. That's our options.
All right, crystal ball. So with what you're proposing and what we know is coming down the pipe, we had a meeting on the adequate facilities tax where we called for, and the Chamber of Commerce hosted it, and we had all of our state leaders and I know Dr. Sullivan was there and the county mayor was there, and they made their case about how and why we needed this funding to get us where we're at. So we know we got $200 million coming up for this high school, and we haven't bought the land yet. If we don't do anything and we don't buy the land and we don't build the school, then portables are coming our way.
Portables and a worse rezoning than you've already seen.
And you're worried too is the state going to fund this? So who needs to host this meeting with our state reps to say, hey, this is what's coming down the pipe, and it's coming? Because this is how we got the adequate facilities tax, unfortunately got done. But it sounds like we're going to need that same public meeting to let the voices be heard. I was on the commission. I was on there 4 years, from 06 to 10. We raised taxes 3 of our 4 years because there was we were behind the 8 ball so bad. Wayne was on the school board, and he can contest to this. We just had no ways of. We had the BEP funding, and we were absolutely getting slayed on that through the state. We couldn't get it. Our jail, we were keeping up. 60% of our jail was full of state prisoners. It cost us $35 a day, and they were paying us $21 a day. So everything we did was the state was throwing on us, and we couldn't do anything about it other than raise property taxes to take care of what our needs are. But if we know we got $200 million, and it's actually going to be more than that because we've got Laverne. You just had to fund Laverne. They've got an addition that started. I'm assuming it started.
That's right.
So,
well, Rick, let me say this, and I really try to phrase things carefully because they tend to carry on, I have found out, once you say them on the radio. I'm going to ask you both to trust me because you both know me. What we have talked about today, including the specifics of those numbers, including the $300 million, the middle school and the high school, in the last 3 days, I will tell you, I have spoken personally to all 7 of our state delegates, and I can tell you that they know. Okay. So you're asking for a public meeting, but I'm telling you that I have spoken, they all know. And I actually said the words to them. So I know that we talked about it. They do know. We just have to keep an open door of communication between each other on the progress. In fact, some of the information I gave you I only had because I had spoken to our state delegates. That's how I knew a little bit about the voucher bill. So I'm going to continue personally making sure we have the answers to give the public on all this stuff. And I don't always have the answer, but I'm going to be very upfront and transparent. You're going to know the cost. You're going to know the challenges. And I'm going to say the hard things, which is we've got to take responsibility as a community. And just where we started the program, when you spend your money here, the money stays here. That's one of the first things you can do to help us. Tell people to spend here. Do all you can. When you cross the county line, you're taking care of somebody else's school system and you're lowering their taxes. I just think at this point, we're all concerned about taking care of our families and our neighbors. Let's spend the money here.
Amen.
That's exactly right.
And a real quick plug, we talked about Mike Sparks called in, so we're going to be sure we say this because you know Mike will he'll blow us up if we forget. So Mike, make sure you know we're doing this for you. The Stewart's Creek High School band has been invited to represent the state of Tennessee and Rutherford County. What incredible honor at the inaugural presidential parade, which will be in less than 2 weeks. They are collecting money. They are at about $55,000. They need about $120,000. I'm going to give you a website link because every little bit helps. $10 helps. $20 helps. Anything helps. Support schsband.com. Go to that website, donate. If for any reason you have a question, call the school. If you'd like to drop off a check, you can deliver it, mail it to the school, make arrangements with them. But folks, we're talking about a Rutherford County arts program, product of our awesome public schools and our commitment to quality, representing the only band asked from Tennessee to march in that parade. I think that is absolutely incredible.
That's
stunning.
Amazing compliment.
Yeah. And it would be amazing if the schools could fund it, but here we've spent an hour talking about the conversation why we just don't have the funding in place for any of that. And I mean, we had the Jessica on with the Atlas program on maybe a month and a half ago.
Yes,
and
sir.
The amount of these blended families that we've got and the homeless kids, and they're not really homeless, but they don't really have a regular place to lay their head down at night, and the astronomical numbers of those kids now that we have in our system. And I think there was a figure thrown around of about 200. Was it?
She's projecting 3,000 in her program.
Yeah, I was thinking about the kids that couldn't afford lunches that we're having to pay in the hole. So the county per month is like $200,000 a month.
Yeah.
We're going to be at 50% of our students on free and reduced lunch by end of the school year. We are. That's the reality.
Yeah. Commissioner, God bless you for your effort. What a great job sharing the information that you had this morning.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
We'll just keep everything going. We'll keep the public informed. We are truly in this together, and I want to say that we must work together. We can't be 5 different legislative bodies in our county anymore. We have to start to work together and decide when the city does something, how does it affect the county and vice versa? If we don't, we're going to become a product of every man for himself, and we're going to have some serious unsustainable, unsolvable county issues without increasing taxes. That is the last thing this commissioner wants anything to do with ever again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I just want to echo what he said. I remember the day you came up to us at Rotary and said you were going to run for county commissioner, and him and I both looked at you and said, "Why?"
Well, he and Natalie took me out to lunch and shared with me his intention. So I blessed him at that time.
Hey, you've done an amazing job.
Yes,
and continue the good work. And we're here for you to be your cheerleader if you need us.
Amen.
And thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Rick and Wayne.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody, it looks like we're going to have a tough weekend. So if you need to go, Kroger alert, go get your milk and milk and bread. Brian's probably going to go into the weather forecast here in just a few minutes. So stay tuned and listen to what Brian's got to say about that coming. And guys, thank you for listening to our show. We starting off 25 right.
Glad to be back.
Right here. And we're looking forward to this year with you guys. But have a great day, and we'll see you next week.